All right, today we're diving into a really beautiful and honestly pretty heartbreaking Japanese folktale. It's a story all about a simple act of kindness, a mysterious gift, and a promise that, well, once it's broken, it changes absolutely everything. Let's get into it. So in Japanese, this story is called Tsuru no Chigiri. Tsuru means crane, pretty straightforward. But Chigiri, that's a powerful word. It means a solemn vow, a pledge, a bond that literally ties two fates together. You're going to want to keep that word in mind because it is the heart of this entire tale.
And that really brings us to the core question of the story, doesn't it? Can one single moment of compassion, just one, truly change a person's destiny? Or, are some promises just too fragile to survive our own human curiosity? Well, let's find out. Okay, so picture this. Our story starts, like so many great tales do, in a pretty tough place. We're in a remote mountain village, totally cut off from the world by a harsh winter snow. And it's here that we meet our hero.
This is Haruto. He's a weaver, and he's poor. But what's so fascinating about him is this huge contrast. On one side, his world is bleak. We're talking poverty, hunger, the biting cold. But then you look at his spirit, and it's the complete opposite. He's this guy who's just filled with gratitude and kindness, always finding some reason for hope, even when his stomach's empty.
So one evening, the snow's coming down, everything's quiet, and Haruto hears this faint, painful cry. He goes outside his little hut and finds a beautiful crane struggling, caught in a hunter's trap. And this right here, this is the moment that sets everything else in motion.
His hands are numb from the cold, but he so carefully works to free the crane. And what happens next is kind of magical. Before it takes off, the bird doesn't just bolt, it turns, looks right at Haruto, and bows its head. It's this clear gesture of thanks, and then it's gone into the winter sky.
And wouldn't you know it, that very same night, his act of kindness comes back to him, but in a way he never could have expected. The silence of his lonely little home is broken by a knock on the door. He opens it, and standing there is this beautiful young woman, her hair all dusted with snowflakes. She says her name is Yuki, which is perfect, right? Because Yuki means snow, and she says she's lost. Haruto, being the kind soul he is, doesn't hesitate. He welcomes her in to get warm by his tiny fire.
And just like that, boom, Haruto's whole life changes. Yuki ends up staying, and her presence just fills all the empty, quiet corners of his home with warmth, with good food, with laughter. For the first time in what feels like forever, Haruto isn't alone.
So as time passes, Yuki feels she needs to repay Haruto for his kindness, and she offers to do it with a special skill she has, a skill that's about to change both of their lives forever.
And here it is, the turning point of the story. Yuki offers to weave this magnificent cloth, something that could completely solve their money problems. But, and it's a big but, it comes with one single, serious condition: a promise. Haruto has to promise her that he will never, ever look inside the room while she's at the loom.
Haruto agrees, and for 3 days and 3 nights, all he hears is the soft sound of the loom from behind the closed door. When Yuki finally comes out, she looks completely exhausted. She's pale, she's thinner, but in her hands, she's holding the most incredible cloth he has ever seen. It literally shines with this soft, otherworldly light, just like moonlight.
So Haruto takes this amazing fabric to the village, and people just lose their minds over it. It sells instantly for a fortune. And just like that, their life of poverty is over. They have plenty of food, tons of firewood, a sense of security. It really feels like a miracle, like a reward for that one simple act of kindness in the snow.
They're happy for a while, but eventually the money starts to run low. So Yuki offers to weave one more time, and she gently reminds Haruto of his promise. She closes the door to the weaving room, and that familiar sound starts up again. But this time, something's different. Something inside Haruto's heart has changed.
This little seed of doubt has been planted, and it just starts to grow. This question starts eating away at him. How does she do it? Where does the thread for something so divine even come from? His curiosity starts to bubble up, and it's becoming stronger than his promise.
And then, on the 3rd night, he just can't take it anymore. He ignores the promise. He does the one thing he swore he would never do. He quietly slides the paper door open, just a tiny crack, and he peeks inside. But what he expects to see isn't there.
there's no woman. Yuki is gone. Instead, sitting at the loom is a crane. The very same crane he saved from the trap. And what he sees next is just devastating. The crane is plucking its own beautiful white feathers, one by one, and weaving them into that shining thread. And with every single feather it pulls, it lets out this soft, heartbreaking cry of pain.
In that one gut-wrenching moment, Haruto understands everything. The secret, the incredible sacrifice, and the terrible, terrible cost of his broken promise. What he saw in that room, it just unraveled their entire world.
And this brings us right back to that word from the beginning, remember? Chigiri? It wasn't just a simple promise like, I promise to take out the trash. It was a sacred bond, a pact that tied his fate to hers. By looking, he didn't just break a rule. He shattered the very foundation of their life together. The crane transforms back into Yuki, and you can just imagine the deep sadness in her eyes as she explains it all. She was the crane whose life he saved. This was her way of repaying his kindness. But now that he's seen her true form, the magic is broken. She can't stay in the human world anymore.
Haruto begs her to stay, of course, but it's too late. She transforms one last time, back into a beautiful crane. She circles his little home once, almost like a final goodbye, and lets a single, perfect white feather drift down to the ground. And then she flies away into the night, leaving Haruto completely and utterly alone again.
And that really brings us to the ashi, the lesson of the whole story. And it's such a powerful one. On the one hand, it tells us that kindness is rewarded. Compassion will always find its way back to you. But on the other, trust is so fragile. If you break a sacred promise, even the most precious thing you have can slip right through your fingers. And so we're left with this final, really haunting question. Haruto got what he wanted, right? He got the knowledge, the truth he was so desperate to see. But in getting it, he lost everything he actually cared about. It really makes you think about trust and sacrifice, and whether some mysteries are meant to be honored, not solved. It makes you wonder, what truths are better left unseen?